All right, hi friends. We're going to do a little bit of reading now. This week our story is going to be about transportation all around the world. And transportation, if we use that big word, what does transportation mean? Okay, if you happen to say how we get to different places, then you are right. And there are all different kinds of transportation all around the world that people use to move around the world. So this week, like I said, our story is going to be about that. The story that we read tomorrow is going to be about transportation all around the world. Today what we're going to do is we're going to practice getting ready for that story, because what we want to do is we want to practice with the idea of what is the main idea. And we've talked about that before. We've talked about that at school, where we've talked about how when the author writes a story, they have a reason for doing it. He or she has a reason for doing it. They want you to be able to finish the story and tell them what was the one thing that they wanted you to learn from the story. And when you think about it that way, that's looking at the main idea of the story. What is the big idea, the most important idea about the story that you are reading? Okay, so we're going to practice with that a little bit today before we read our story tomorrow. So the first thing that I do want you to do is I want you to open up your skills buddy, because I know you have them right there, because when I talked to everybody last week, they were right near wherever your workstation was, which I loved. So what I'd like you to do is open up to page 94 and 95 in the Purple Diamonds, okay? And take a look at that picture. These children are all doing what? Very good. They're all going to school, right? They're all going to school. But if we take a look at it, let's look at this picture. How is this child going to school? Very good. They're riding a bike to school, right? How are these children going to school? Very good. They're going in a car to school. How are these children going to school? They're going in a bus to school. And these children are walking to school. Very good. So if someone asked me, what is the main idea of this whole picture? What is the big idea? What's the important idea? Well, if I look at all the details, I see this boy's on a bike, these people are in cars, these kids are on a school bus, and these kids are walking. But they're all walking to, or they're all coming, I should say, to school. So if I look at the details in this picture, and I think about it, then I would have to say that the main idea of this picture is very good, that children can get to school in many different ways, okay? So that would be the big idea or the main idea of this story or this picture. And when I understand what the main idea of a story is, it helps me to better understand why the author wrote that story, okay? So all stories have one big idea, and that's the most important idea that the author is writing about. And that is called the main idea of a story. To be a good reader, I'm always looking for and trying to understand what is that main idea, that big idea that the author wants me to understand when I'm finished reading the story. Today what we're going to do is we're going to practice that, because we're going to read a story called Traveling in London. Okay, we're going to read a story about traveling in London. And what I want you to be thinking about as I read this story is I want you to be listening to the details in the story. That means all the little parts in the story. And I want you to be listening. And I want you to be thinking about how people travel in London. Okay, how people travel in London. Okay, so listen very carefully. Traveling in London. London is a huge city in England, a country across the Atlantic Ocean. People in London can travel in many different ways. Many people drive cars. Some people take taxi cabs. Many people take buses. London was once famous for its red double-decker red buses. When you get on one of these buses, you climb narrow stairs to get to the top deck of the bus. Like many cities, London also has a subway system. Subways are trains that travel in underground tunnels. People go from the street downstairs to the subway station. There they buy tickets and get on the trains. They can look at big maps to see which train to take to get to where they want to go. Okay? So, what are some of the different ways that people travel in the story around London? Okay, think back to the beginning of the story. What was one of the first ways that they said? Okay, it says people in London travel many different ways. Right, some said they drive in cars. Okay, cars was one. What was another one? Okay, taxi cabs. Yes, taxi cabs would. Some people take buses. Very good. And what were those very special buses called? The red double-decker buses. And I will tell you, on Wednesday, we're going to take a field trip. Not a real field trip where we're getting on a school bus to go, but we are going to take a field trip to London, and we are going to ride one of the double-decker red buses, and we're going to ride it around London. How cool is that? And you're going to tell me about some of the things that you see in London. So that's why I wanted to read about traveling in London today, because we're going to London on Wednesday. All right. And what was the last way? That's right. They go in a subway. Okay, they go on a subway. All right. So if I look at all those details of how people travel through London, okay, cars, buses, taxi cabs, and the subway, they're all traveling around what place? Right, they're traveling around London. Well, if I think back to this picture, they took different ways, but they were all going to school. We said that children can go to school in many different ways. Then I think if we wanted to understand what the main idea of traveling in London would be, if I'm thinking people travel in cars, buses, taxis, and subways, I could say the same thing, that people travel around London in many different ways. And if I understand that as the main idea of the story, then I believe I understand what the author wanted me to learn from that story, that there are many different ways to travel in London. All right, so good job on the main idea. Now what we're going to do is we're going to do a little bit of writing. We're not going to write about the main idea, but we're going to use things that we just talked about. Taxis, cars, buses, and we're going to use that in our own writing now, okay? So today we read about traveling in a city called London and all the different ways that you can travel there, okay? Have you ever gone to a big city before? Okay, what are some of the things that you have seen there? What are some of the people or some of the places or the animals or the things have you seen there? Okay. Have you seen lots of people on the street? Women, men, kids? Exactly, you see lots of people on the street. How about restaurants? Restaurants, stores. Very good. Movie theaters, exactly. Okay. How about animals? What kind of animals have you seen in the city before? Maybe squirrels, birds, pigeons. Yep. And how about things? Cars, buses, taxis, trains, subways, okay? Well, all of those things are called, do you remember what they're called? People, places, animals, and things. We worked on them last week. Very good. They are called nouns, okay? Well, today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the group of things, okay? And I'm going to show you a couple of pictures. All right, so we have a taxi. We have a wagon. We have a van. We have a jet. We have a truck. We have a train. We have a boat, and we have a bus. Very good. All right. Those are all things. Those are all things. All right. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to write about one of those things. But the first thing I want to do is I'm going to write on my board, I'm going to write a sentence. And I'm going to write about the taxi. I'm going to write about the taxi. So I'm going to write up here. You can read it as I write it. I like to now watch what happens. I put an E at the end, so this is going to say I. I like to I'd ride in a taxi. I'm going to put my period at the end. Okay? All right. Which word is which word is the noun? What's my noun in this word? Very good. Taxi is my noun. Very good. All right. Now, that's one taxi. So let's read our sentence. I like to ride in a taxi. Very good. All right. Now, if I write this sentence, and I'll tell you this first word. Okay. There are, and this word is many. Would I say there are many taxi? Does that sound right? There are many taxi? No. What do I have to do if I have more than one? Very good. I add an S to the end. So now my sentence would read, there are many taxis. Very good. So that S at the end tells me I have more than one. Very good. What about if I had a wagon? Okay. What happens if I have two wagons? What do I have to do? Very good. I have to add an S to the end if I have two wagons. Very good. What about if I have one van? An van. What happens if I have two vans? What do I have to do? Very good. I have to add my S to vans. Very, very good. All right. Sometimes you might also, and I'll show you this one. If I take a look at this, this is a bus. Very good. B-us. Bus. If I have more than one bus, sometimes I have to add an ES to my word to say I have more than one. I add an ES to say I have more than one bus. All right, good job. That's just a little bit of practice with making more than one with our nouns. All right, what you are going to do right now is you're going to open up your copybooks. And the main idea of our story today was all the different ways that you can travel in London. Well, what I'm going to let you do right now is I'm going to have you write about the way you like to travel. Because we just talked about how we saw the main idea of how the kids could go travel all different ways to school. And we talked about all the different ways that you could travel in London. And what I'm going to ask you to do is I would like to write about how you like to travel, what you like to ride in. Okay, so as always, we're going to write 3-30-2020 at the top of our copy page. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to start to write. If you need to pause, go ahead and then come back to me. All right, so the first word I want to write is I. Well, we all know how to write I, so let's write I. I, 2-finger space, and that sight word like. L-I-K-E, good. I like, and then the sight word to. I like to. Now let's tap out ride. I'd, ride. Well, that first sound is I. Well, we know it's I. I'd. So there's that D. And because I is saying its own name, I have to put an E. I like to ride in, 2-finger space, A, and I would like you to tell me what kind of transportation you like to ride in. Do you like to ride in a jet, a plane, a spaceship, a rocket ship, a submarine, a car, a wagon? However you want, tell me, how do you like to ride? I like to ride in A, and I have set up now a very neat way, and I will be sending moms and dads the link for it, where you're going to be able to show me your work in a video. So I'm going to ask you to hold up your copybook when you take your little video to show me, and then you'll be able to share with your other classmates of how you like to ride, okay? All right, great job writing today, and I'll see you in a little bit. Bye, friends.